One of the most comforting foods in winter is fresh, homemade bread. French baguettes, to be exact. Crunchy on the outside, light and airy on the inside, and warm out of the oven. There's just not one bad thing about that, no matter how you look at it. I love to bake. I enjoy cooking, yes. But I come from a family of women who bake. You've got a baby shower, wedding, funeral, you say? We bake. I couldn't tell you how to use a bread machine or how to make those popular fancy cupcakes with elaborate decorative icing designs, but I have the world's best recipes for kiffles, nut bread, cakes, and pies. I am snowed in. We had 6 inches of snow yesterday, and I decided to make some homemade French onion soup with some baguettes, and I'm sharing the recipes with you today. I'm doing a separate video for each of these, and this is the bread video, and you can look down below, and I will link the soup video and also the entire recipe for what I'm making today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measuring cup with some hot water. We're going to measure 1 1/4 cups of water, and we're going to add 1 package of active dry yeast, which comes to about 2½ teaspoons, and then 1/2 of a teaspoon of sugar, and you're going to mix that up. I like to use a fork to try to break up any lumps that are in there. I set that aside for about 5 minutes, give it time for that yeast to activate. And while that's activating, I'm going to take a mixing bowl and I'm going to add my flour and salt. So 3 1/2 cups of flour and 1½ teaspoons of salt. And I'm going to use the back of one of my measuring cups to make like a divot in there. So once your yeast is activated, and I missed the shot with my camera, I don't know whether I turned it off or what, you're going to pour that in and you give it a stir or two with either a spatula or a wooden spoon. You're not going to thoroughly mix it. Just combine the ingredients, maybe mix it 6 or 7 times, and then you're going to cover that up and allow it to rise or activate for about 15 minutes. And this is what it looks like once those 15 minutes are up. I'm going to use a spatula to just kind of like scrape it from around the bowl, turn it in a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix it in an electric mixer. If you don't have an electric mixer, that's fine. You can mix it by hand, but using an electric mixer, it makes the job so much faster and easier. So I'm going to put it in my mixer, and while you're mixing this, if it's too dry, you can add a tablespoon of water. Just add like a little bit at a time until it's the right consistency. And the same thing is if it's too wet, you can add just a little bit of flour, maybe just a teaspoon or a tablespoon at a time until you have a nice soft dough. So I mixed it for just a few minutes. You'll see once it's combined, it should like kind of not be sticking to the bowl. If it is, then you definitely want to add a little bit more flour in there until it's just the nice soft consistency that we're looking for. And I'm going to lift up my beater and just like pull that dough off of there. And you can see it's a little sticky, but it's not like super, wet sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer it into a clean bowl. Once it's in that clean bowl, we're going to cover it and allow it to rise for 90 minutes. Now, this is great because you can take the dirty bowl and put it in water and let it start soaking or wash it up right away, and while this is rising. And what I like to do is, like I said, I cover it with a linen towel and I just put it in my oven. This is a cold oven, not one that is, hot. And just set your timer for 90 minutes. After 90 minutes, we're going to take a look at it. Wow, look how beautiful that rose. It looks gorgeous. But next, we're going to punch it down just 2 or 3 times, and then we're going to cover it again and allow it to rise for another hour. Once again, I'm going to put my linen towel on top and stick it back in my cold oven and set my timer for 60 minutes. While that's rising, I'm going to get my baking sheet ready. I use a regular large-sized cookie sheet and sprinkle a little bit of flour on there. And once that 60 minutes is up, I'm going to take the bowl out of my oven, sprinkle a little bit of flour on my work surface, and I'm going to turn the dough out of the bowl. I use a large spatula for this because it can stick a little bit. Once it rises, it kind of expands and sticks into the bowl. So you just want to turn that out, and I'm not using a lot of flour. You can see just a little bit. And I'm going to lift like one side of the dough just to kind of get some flour underneath there so it's not like totally sticking. And what we're going to do is we're going to separate this this into our loaves. And last time I made this, I made 2 loaves out of this dough and they were too big. So I planned on making 3 baguettes out of this. I kind of just eyeball it and then take a large, like a butcher knife, and just chop it. But then my daughter said she really wanted to make some sandwiches. Can I make her some like little square pieces of bread, kind of like a flatbread? And I said, fine. So I cut it into 3 equal portions, and then I take the first one and I'm just going to kind of shape it. I'm not like really working it hard. I'm not pressing all the air bubbles or anything out of it. We want to kind of keep it nice. And I stretch it out into like the length of my pan, or a little bit less than the length of my pan. And then I'm going to lift it and I'm going to set it on my pan. And I do the same thing with the second section. And I'm just going to like shape it out a little bit and then put it next to the first one. And then with my last one, I did the same thing. I pulled it out again, and then I took the knife once more and I cut that one into 3 pieces, because that's going to be for 3 sandwiches. And they're not perfectly shaped, but that's fine. So I set those next to my others, and then we're going to cover it with a towel one more time. And we're going to let it rise for about 45 minutes. So you want to set your timer for 45 minutes and let those loaves rise. Cover them up and preheat your oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. Then take a pie plate or another similar oven-safe container, put some water in it. I put about 1.5 cups of water, and I put it in the bottom rack of my oven. And here are our risen loaves after 45 minutes. And I'm going to take a serrated knife and I'm going to just put a diagonal slash in the top of each of them. You're not going to press down very hard. You want to make an impression though, so maybe about 1/4 inch, a little less than that. And I'm just going to go right over those. And you can see that my 2 long loaves kind of rose together and they stuck together. And you don't want to pull them apart like with your hands, because you're going to like get all the air out of them, and then they're not going to be nice and airy inside. So what I do is I take a knife and I just, cut right down the middle there and just kind of move them apart from each other a little bit. My oven is preheated and my bread is in the oven. The purpose of the water is to give them that wonderful crisp crust, and you're going to bake these for 20 minutes or until lightly golden. I had to leave mine in for about an extra 5 or 6 minutes until they were the color that I liked. Remove from the oven and put on a wire cooling rack, and that's it. Now like I said, I made some French onion soup with mine. I will put the link to that video above and below, and the entire recipe for this is down below. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you try this recipe. It is just delicious. It is a little bit time consuming. It's not hard. It is just a lot of steps, and you started early. So today was a snow day and this was the perfect thing to make. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back soon with another fabulous recipe for you. Bye guys.